Welcome to this week's edition of Outdoors Online, a weekly webcast produced by the North Dakota Game and Fish Department. I'm your host, Tom Jensen. We are in Devil's Lake this week, continuing our annual fishing reports. My guest is Randy Hiltner. Randy is the fisheries supervisor for the Northeast District. Randy, first of all, I want to talk Devil's Lake a little bit. The lake is, well, fluctuating. We're in one of those down cycles. How's that going to affect things up here?
Well, we're only down about 3 feet from our recent high in 2011, so it's not really low at this point. You know, we're actually almost 30 feet above where we were.
You're not going to characterize it as low, right?
So it's relatively high still.
Okay. The bread and butter lake in your district is, of course, Devil's Lake. It's a huge fishery. You had a pretty good winter of ice fishing, depending on who you ask, the walleye fishermen or the perch fishermen. Is that going to carry over into the summer, spring and summer months?
Well, the walleye fishing seemed a lot better this past winter than the perch fishing. The perch fishing I thought was, way slower than the winter prior, which was excellent. But walleye was a pretty decent year out here, and based on our netting results, we think we'll have a pretty good year for walleye out here this summer.
Randy, the main forage on Devil's Lake has been freshwater shrimp, or scuds, for many years. You've had a down cycle on those for a while. Now they're on the comeback. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I think that's right. The last 2 or 3 years, we've noticed fewer scuds in our netting sampling and talking to anglers and even through our ice fishing. But this winter, it seemed like a lot more scuds were being augered up in the slush of your hole, and anglers with cameras reported a lot of freshwater shrimp. And like you said, they're an important part of the food chain out here for fish of all sizes and species. But also the excellent 2013 perch hatch has been a really good forage the last 2 years for the bigger predators.
Your fish populations, you've had some real good reproduction years, at least for walleyes in the last couple of years.
Yeah, we've had very consistent recruitment with our walleyes. And 2009 was our largest hatch we've ever measured. And 2013 was the largest yellow perch hatch we've ever measured. So we've got young fish coming up.
You've got a wide variety of fish in your district and a lot of the lakes in your district, Randy. I want to talk about them one at a time. Let's start with walleyes.
We do have some nice walleye lakes out there, and a few that come to mind are up in the Turtle Mountains. We have a Dion Lake, which is a nice little walleye fishery. We've got Lake Cole, about 1,000-acre walleye fishery south of Warwick. Walleye, Stump Lake is a big lake, but that's an excellent walleye fishery right now. We've had some of our better catch rates we ever had out there last year in our nets.
Okay. Randy, most of the fishery supervisors in all the districts that we've talked to are very high on their northern populations. It's a great fishing opportunity, and I know you've got some smaller lakes and even some larger lakes that are just wonderful northern fisheries.
Yeah, essentially the Devil's Lake Basin entirely has good northern pike fishing. Lake Irvin, Devil's Lake, Stump Lake, wherever roadways and bridges touch Devil's Lake Basin water, you can catch a lot of northern pike. But you can get away to some of our smaller lakes. Up in the Turtle Mountains, we have a Carpenter Lake, which is a nice pike fishery, and Lake Upsilon has nice pike in it as well. But yeah, we have no shortage of northerns, even though many of our small reservoirs have pretty good northern fishing.
All right, how about panfish?
Panfish, Red Willow Lake would come to mind as far as bluegill fishing. Bisbee Dam has some nice bluegill and crappie, and Hommy Dam has good numbers of crappie. So those few come to mind.
Okay. It's kind of different being able to manage a district, Randy, that has a lake the size of Devil's Lake, and then also all of these smaller fisheries that some might term sleeper lakes. Can you give me some examples of those that maybe get overlooked?
There aren't too many that do get overlooked. This past winter, Silver Lake over in Wells County was discovered for the yellow perch, and it received a lot of fishing pressure this past winter.
Randy, take a day off, go fishing, any lake in your district, and fish for any species in your district.
Well, we're of course right in between seasons now, but I think what I would do, Tom, is I like to catch northern pike right away in the spring, so I would go near one of the bridges that touch the Devil's Lake waters and catch some northerns.
All right.
On a less windy day.
Moving now to the southeast part of the state, BJ Kratz is the fisheries supervisor for the Southeast District. BJ, you manage a lot of lakes that are in that Cheyenne River watershed and that are really good small fisheries.
Right, Tom. We're pretty fortunate that we have a lot of smaller water bodies that provide a lot of opportunity for anglers in the way of walleyes and perch, and even pike in that area. So.
Okay. Well, you mentioned perch. You guys had a pretty good winter on the ice in the Southeast District. Is that going to carry over to spring and summer, you think?
Yeah, it should. Fishing was kind of slow midwinter, and it stayed that way until the end. It was pretty good in December on some of our smaller lakes for perch. Unfortunately, it didn't hold out through the entire year, but we're looking forward to a good year. I mean, we have a little lower water levels in the lake, so technically the fish might be a little more available than they are when you have a surplus of water.
Sure. Walleye is probably the bread and butter fish for your district, at least for the spring and summer months. Let's talk about some of your better walleye lakes.
Sure. Well, we've got a lot of opportunities right now for anglers, including bigger water and our smaller lakes. We have Jamestown Reservoir and Lake Ashtabula are both traditional walleye waters that consistently produce fish. On the other hand, we have smaller water bodies. Fox Lake, for example, has got a really good walleye population in it. We now have a ramp on that lake, so anglers can access that. Another lake, northwest of Jamestown is Barnes Lake. That one has a good walleye population, and they're that table fair size fish, 17, 18 inch range. So those two lakes, as far as the smaller water bodies go, should definitely have some opportunities. The fish are there. So.
Most of the guys that I've talked to, BJ, the fisheries supervisors, when I mention northerns, their faces kind of light up because everywhere in their district, the northern populations are huge and they're providing some great fishing opportunities.
Right, and that's no different in this district. We have a lot of northern pike waters. A couple that don't receive a lot of pressure is Kalmbach Lake. That one is south of Jamestown, southwest of Jamestown. Pretty good fish numbers in that one. Diamond Lake has a history of producing some good pike fishing, especially early on. And then Clark Lake again, northwest of Jamestown. Those are good pike waters. And then of course Jamestown and Pipestem, Ashtabula have the distinction of being able to produce a large northerns, and that's something that not all lakes can do with any regularity. So.
You have the opportunity to manage some of the best crappie fishing in the lake. Some of your lakes are just wonderful. Let's talk about those for a minute.
Sure. We are about as good as you can get for crappies right now. Tremendous opportunity on both Jamestown and Pipestem reservoirs. We've got larger fish in Pipestem. We have tremendous numbers in Jamestown. I anticipate, just like last summer, the fishing should be phenomenal all summer long for crappies on Jamestown Reservoir. It provided a lot of opportunity for people last year on Jamestown Reservoir, kids included, and the fish hopefully are a little larger this year. They're growing up, and there's just tremendous numbers, so it should provide action most of the year.
We mentioned ice fishing earlier, BJ, and that of course includes perch, which is the bread and butter fish, as it were, for winter fishermen.
Right.
Let's talk about that for a little
Sure.
while, the perch, as long as we're talking about crappies, how the perch populations are doing.
Sure. As you know, most perch have a tendency to be targeted in the winter more so than the summer. That doesn't mean that they're not just as susceptible to being caught, and perhaps even more so in the summer. But, we have pretty good perch numbers in Lake Ashtabula again, and the size is pretty decent. We have good perch numbers in Clark Lake. Again, that's just been a pretty good all-around lake in general. Perch are one of those fish species that you just have to be open-minded about and know that they're pretty prolific, and there's lots of numbers depending on where you go and stuff. So.
All right. BJ, you guys had some issues in the James River, I believe, with one aquatic nuisance species, that's silver carp.
Right.
Where do we stand on that right now?
Well, we're going to continue to monitor that situation very, very intensely, so to speak. We had our first report potentially of a silver carp caught below Lemoore Dam on the James River last week. It wasn't verified by us, but an angler had reported that he had snagged one. So we caught 5 basically last year below Jamestown Dam, all within the city limits of Jamestown. Despite our sampling efforts on a lot of the rest of the river, they seem to be confined to that area. At this point now, with the low flows that we have this year in the spring, it may not be a great thing for fishermen, but as far as limiting, the amount of area that those fish can cover, sure, it's a good thing there. So we'll see what happens this year.
Sure. I'm going to ask you the same question that I ask all of the fisheries supervisors in every district. And I know you guys are extremely busy this time of year. Spring is always, for the fisheries crews, an extremely busy time of year. But if you could take a day off, you could grab your family and go fishing anywhere in your district, where would you go and what would you do?
Well, that's a difficult question. It just depends on what species you want to catch, really. I mean, in terms of action, to keep kids busy is important if you're taking kids out, so I would actually target crappies. And Jamestown Reservoir is the place to go for constant action. If I was looking for walleyes, I would probably go, east of Jamestown toward, Fox Lake, or Barnes Lake, like I mentioned earlier. Mallard Marsh is another great one that was, produced a lot of fish last year. There's just a tremendous amount of opportunity out there right now, as far as not only fish numbers but fish diversity, species too. So sure. There's bluegills too. I mean, that's some of the overlooked often. We have Heinrich Martin Dam, Brewer Lake, and Dead Colt Creek. All three of those are pretty good places to catch bluegills. And then you always have the opportunity to catch largemouth bass too, which is another one that doesn't receive a lot of attention. So right. Very diverse question, so to speak.
You'd have a busy day.
Well, yeah, multiple days.
Thanks, BJ.
Yeah.
For a complete list of fishable lakes in North Dakota and a list of boat ramps, plus stocking reports and lots of other useful information, check out the March-April edition of North Dakota Outdoors magazine. It has directions to a lake you might want to check out, whether or not the lake has public access, and also what species exist in the lake. The information is also available on the Game and Fish website, along with topographical maps of your favorite lake. The website address is gf.nd.gov. For Randy Hiltner, for BJ Kratz, and the rest of the staff here at North Dakota Game and Fish, thanks for joining us for Outdoors Online. We'll see you again next week.